And I'm going to call the meeting to order. And if we would all rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we would all remain standing for a moment of silence for all those in harm's way and all of our military stationed at home and abroad. Thank you. We can all be seated. Statement of advance notice. The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act of the State of New Jersey have been satisfied by the inclusion of the date, time, and place of this meeting in the notice of regular meetings adopted by this board on January 8th, 2024. Such schedule and notice of meetings is posted at the municipal building in the Mount Olive Library, the Board of Education offices, and the 6 schools was submitted to the Daily Record for publication on January 9th, 2024, and was filed with the clerk of Mount Olive Township on January 9th, 2024. I direct that this announcement be entered into the minutes of this meeting. And we'll take a roll call, please, Ms. Jones.
Mrs. Aquino? Here. Mrs. Fenton?
Here.
Mrs. Figuera?
Here.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Here.
Mrs. Melendez?
Here.
Mrs. O'Neill? Here. Mr. Orzillo?
Here.
Mr. Strelacci?
Here.
And Mrs. Narcisse?
I am here. And we'll move to the approval of the minutes for 2.0 and 2.1. And we will go with Mr. Orzillo. Would you please make a motion?
I make a motion.
No, excuse me. I'm
Sorry.
going to go over this in curriculum, but everybody needs to be about this far away from their microphone when they're speaking, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
I'd like to make a motion to approve minutes 2.1.
Second.
Do we have any questions from the board? And we'll take a roll call, please, Ms. Jones.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes.
Mrs. Figuera?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes.
Mr. Strelacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes. And do we have any communications or petitions for the board? No. Anyone from the board? No? Seeing none, we will move on to the reports and discussions. And opening first will be Superintendent's report.
So at this time, we're going to be welcoming our new staff who joins the district starting this particular school year. So at this moment, if I can please invite Ms. Nicole Massara and Ms. Ashley Lopez, who's going to be sharing our staff who's in attendance from CMS.
Good evening, board. Good evening, guests. We would like to introduce our newest staff members present here today at the meeting. We'll go through the whole list.
Just who's ever here.
Just whoever's here. Excellent. I would like to welcome up Kelly Ryder, 5th grade teacher. Stephanie Ironzelli, child study team. Danielle Bibot, occupational therapist. And lastly, Karina Torres, physical therapist. Welcome to CMS and to Mount Olive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome, everyone.
At this time, if I can please invite Ms. Kolinsky from Mountain View.
Good evening, Board of Education, Mount Olive community. Thank you for this opportunity this evening. Can I have my Mountain View new staff come up, please? All of you. Just going to go down the list. Just give a little wave when I call your name. All right, so I'm going to be here Terry Brunelli, 5th grade teacher, and Emma Carr, 4th grade teacher, and Louise, which was by Lorianne Coronado, she's a 1st grade teacher, and Kim, Yep.
Just, yeah, anyone at the mic, if you could just make sure that you speak very closely and directly into the
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Kim was, I guess she'll be here maybe a little later. She's a soccer coach, so she'll be returning back any minute now. Joyce Harnett is our learning consultant on our preschool team. Kelly Capusta is our occupational therapist. And Cheryl Mickus couldn't come. Mickey Pugliese is on our child study team for our upper grade levels. And Brian Schiffman is a first grade teacher as well. And Dana Simoti couldn't be here. So welcome. Thank you for this opportunity.
And at this time, can I please invite Ms. Jennifer Curry and Ms. Ellen Reyes from Sand Shore.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Sand Shore, come on down. We are pleased to introduce some of our new staff members to you. We have Sabrina Aiden, 4th grade teacher. Dylan Natillo, music teacher. Christina Velasquez, guidance counselor. Ashley Salzano, occupational therapist. And Sarah Saltzman, 2nd grade teacher. Give a wave, everyone.
Welcome.
And at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Mark Grove from Tins Road.
Good evening, everyone. If I could have the Tits Road new faculty and staff, please join me up here. All right. I'd like to welcome Karina Torres, physical therapist. Miss Lee Cohen, 4th grade elementary teacher. I have Miss Jessica Pomeroy, music elementary teacher. Jenna Kalinovich, our kindergarten elementary teacher. I have Ms. Courtney Castle, our 3rd grade elementary school teacher. I have I have Rosalind Hamry, a paraprofessional, and I also have Grayson Campese, a paraprofessional. And this is the Tits Road staff who's with us this evening. So thank you very much. And welcome to all the new marauders to the Mount Olive School District. This is a great place.
I'm going to pretend I'm Agatha Wilkie. And I hope I do it justice. At this time, if I can invite the middle school staff to come up. Anna Crum, who joined us for the guidance department. Michelle Ebel, our 7th grade math teacher. Lindsay Anderson, 7th grade ELA. Justin Karifi, 7th grade science. Thomas Fabulero. And multilingual. So, lots of applause for the middle school staff. Last but certainly not least, in our hearts and minds, Mr. Kevin Stansbury from the high school. Where's the scooter?
Yeah, my scooter. I keep it at the high school. But no, Colleen brought it over to the football game for me on Friday night, so good stuff. Members of the Mount Olive High School staff, if you'd like to join me up front here, I'd like to introduce you. Thank you, board, for allowing us to introduce our great new staff for the 24-25 school year. We have, give a little wave, Abigail Bowley, our transition teacher. Victoria Bustamante, teacher of English. Deborah Dickerson, teacher of freshman college prep and honors English. Pina DeLauro, Spanish teacher. Sierra Fizenko, teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing for all of the Mount Olive Township School District. Danielle Pasquale, band director. And Jennifer Zolflick, photography and art history teacher. Round of applause. Welcome aboard.
So certainly when you see the number of new staff who joined the district, we actually have close to over 70 new members who have joined the Mount Olive School District this coming school year. And certainly as we interview people over the course of the past few months, one thing was really certain. Those individuals who have applied here are really hardworking, dedicated individuals who want to continue to add to the wonderful reputation we have established. And one thing I would like to mind is some of them also are graduates of our wonderful school district. So it's really wonderful to see some of you to come back home, and we really appreciate all the accomplishments you're going to make on this upcoming school year.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you. Moving right along, we will move on to our reports discussions. Oh, you guys are welcome to stay if you want to sit through our whole meeting.
But you don't have to.
We know that you've been with our students all day.
Thank you and welcome.
All right, we're going to try to grab them outside.
If you guys want to move up, you can.
Just say you want to stay for a board meeting, right?
All right, with that, we will move on to our reports. Well, did any board members have questions for our new staff? No, they left us.
Too late.
All right, Ms. Aquino, you're going to kick it off with personnel.
Yes, we met on September 5th in the board office. All members were present, and the committee briefly discussed the finalized reorganization plan for the business office beginning in October. The roles and responsibilities of the new assistant business administrator and an administrative assistant to the business administrator were reviewed. The committee reiterated that within the reallocation of the business office job responsibilities, it is important that there continues to be a prompt responsiveness to Board of Education related inquiries. The committee also reviewed the hiring process used district-wide for administrative positions. Typically, this process includes an initial meet and greet to screen candidates in person, a first round of Q&As scored with a rubric by a committee made up of various stakeholders from across the district. A second round where candidates complete a performance task also scored by a rubric, and a final round with superintendent. The number of candidates in each round may vary based on the applicant pool. Dr. Bangia shared with the committee the proposed secretary longevity sidebar agreement between the Board of Education and EMO. The agreement helps bolster secretary pay by rewarding employees for their years of service in the district. And Dr. Bangia, I just have a quick question. Has the EMO, or maybe Mrs. Narcisse, sorry, has the EMO negotiation team met yet for the paraprofessional side?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Arzillo and I have discussed, but we have not had a formal meeting per se.
The committee discussed the need for several teachers at the high school to receive 7th period coverage pay in order for there to be continuity of instruction for students in the academic areas of math, science, and social studies. The committee then discussed the challenges presented by the length of time employees have to notify administration prior to taking a leave of absence that can create coverage issues. Human Resources is currently reviewing these procedures and timelines, and I would like to just say thank you to all the teachers that have stepped in and are doing the coverage at the last minute. So thank you for that. That's all for personnel.
Anyone from the board have questions with regards to the personnel minutes? No? I want to say thank you, though, for the hard work that the committee has put in, the amount of work and the initiatives that our administration has put in with regards to personnel has been really, really amazing. With that, we'll move on to curriculum and technology. Ms. Benton.
Thank you. So we met Tuesday, September 3rd. All were present. We had some guests. Mr. Lucid, Mrs. Margosiak, Mr. Reska, and Ms. Jensen. Mr. Jensen, I'm sorry. So anyway, we had a lot to discuss, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. We did curriculum approval. Ms. McDermott shared the overview of the draft curriculum presentation that we'll be giving on tonight. Actually, are we doing that tonight?
Which one?
Are we doing the draft presentation tonight?
No, not tonight. It's going to be September.
Following, all right.
It's second
all right.
meeting.
Second week. She shared courses that were revised and provided each supervisor with time to provide high-level comments about the department's work. We had an elementary ELA curriculum rollout. Mrs. McDermott explained the elementary ELA curriculum writers were supported by 2 living literacy coaches during the summer. The products met with curriculum requirements, but the new K-5 ELA supervisor, Jenny Masterini, needs additional time to review this and provide resources and supports to ensure a smooth implementation. So she will present to the committee on October 7th and to the BOE on the 14th. We had a district assessment update. She also shared that the district has heard feedback of staff through various channels and understood their concerns about the numbers of assessments, blended learning platforms, data reports, and programs that are in current use. In response, we are excited to announce the expansion of the iReady Success pilot program to kindergarten through 3rd grade. Last spring, our 3rd grade teachers participated in the pilot of iReady, and they reported positive outcomes and overall satisfying experience. To allow staff to focus on this new tool, we'll be pausing the use of the Linkit benchmarks, Envision Math Readiness Assessment, SRI assessments, and the platforms of ST Math and Lexia. The staff received training for the platform during the afternoon on August 28th. To our paraprofessionals, again with feedback from Ms. McDermott, we shared that paraprofessionals will be compensated for up to 10 hours to attend the Monday meetings and work with the teaching staff to ensure alignment and a shared understanding of the classroom expectations. Excuse me. Spanish instruction, K through 2. Ms. McDermott also shared a sample up to us of the Spanish teachers and highlighted the need to revamp the current offerings. They are looking at different ways to actually make it more readily available for the children. Standard-based report cards. Ms. McDermott provided an overview of development of the draft of the standard-based report cards. Teachers were also provided time this summer to create proficiency scales to provide teachers with specific parameters to each achievement level to ensure coherence between all 4 elementary schools. Technology report. Dr. Cryer reviewed technology updates, including new equipment purchased and distribution of school year. Equipment included new Chromebooks for moms and staff and students, and purchased new Promethean boards. The full update is on the website. Graduation report. Dr. Kreider also shared our graduation report, which is also on our website. And board meeting tech support. We had extensive discussions surrounding technology support for all board members to ensure an equitable experience. With that being said, Dr. Kreider shared some best practices for presenters, so I'm going to read them to everybody. So, accessible BOE meeting, we're going to learn to speak into the microphone when speaking. Oh, and by the way, you guys have a cheat sheet up there too, so this goes for anybody that comes to make board comments. We are to speak loudly and clearly. One person should speak at a time. We're going to repeat the questions from the audience for someone that doesn't speak into the microphone. Also, avoid jargon that a transcribing application may not understand or define the term once you have said it. And do not have side conversations, and keep the noise level down, please. And that is all I have.
Do we have any questions from the board?
Yes, I have. In the Spanish instruction K-2, my question is, there says that it's going to be a decrease in the frequency of Spanish instruction, and there is a sample from CMS which allocate just 20 minutes of lesson for Spanish. So is the 20 minutes of lesson has been always 20 minutes, or is going to be decreased the time of the lesson rather than the frequency, or both?
So they haven't made up their mind. We were discussing it. All lessons were 20 minutes with about a 30-second to 1 minute transferred from classroom to classroom. And what they were finding is transferring that Spanish teacher from classroom to classroom, it wasn't 20 minutes. So we were talking about at meeting is providing a like 10-minute gap so they can actually get a true 20 minutes. And in order to do that, we're thinking about going every other week instead of once a week. Because as you know, young children, they like to say hi, they like to talk, you know, the transition period was very upsetting, and they were truly only getting about 10 minutes.
So a following question then. You say every other week with that schedule that says, I think it's Tuesday, 3 days per week, but every other week.
That's what we're looking at. I don't think we've made a final decision on that, correct?
We haven't. What we found, as Ms. Fenton pointed out, the current schedule is not actually reflective of the time in the classroom. If you look at the current schedules, they don't account for transition time between classrooms, so that is not really accounted for actual instruction to the students. So the first thing we're doing is to try to create a schedule realistic in which we can't teleport one teacher to the next classroom. We actually have to account for them to leave a classroom, go to the next one, and transition. And then also looking at how we're going to create a schedule moving forward that's reflective of the actual curriculum that we want to instruct for the students.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions with regards to curriculum and technology? I just kind of wanted to clarify a little bit about the accessible speaking into the mic. Part of this also is that our technology is linked to the mic, so when we have any of the technology picking up our phrases or our words, the mics are a key part for our YouTube video and for the actual words showing up on the screen if you're watching at home, as well as for any other individuals that utilize that or rely on it, as well as, I'm listening right now, the big echo too in this very large room causes a little bit of a loss in our speech and our hearing as well. So we just want to make sure that everyone is able to participate fully and understand fully whether they're here or at home with regards to what is occurring here at the meetings and what's being said and spoken as well. And that, you know, we all can participate and make an effort as well. And I have to joke, Ms. Fenton, when we talk about the avoid jargon, call it the alphabet soup. So if you're saying ADP instead of saying the phrase fully, a YouTube video and the words don't actually pick up all of the letters when we actually say those. And I'm like pointing to the camera over here. So those are a little bit of our tidbits and best practices, and we'll have it up at the podium, whether it's here or in the board office as well. And I am totally guilty of not doing all of these properly as well. So this is for all of us. Any other questions, comments? Nope. Okay. We'll just keep on going down, and we'll move to Finance and Operations Committee report, and we'll go over to Ms. Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Okay. So the Finance Committee met on Tuesday, September 3rd, and I will take you through an overview of what we met on for 2 hours. I'm going to give you the clips. So we started with our facilities, security, and transportation updates, reviewed those, specifically looking at first weeks of school, those types of items with transportation, security, etc. One of the items that we did review was opening enrollment at the request of Mr. Strelacci, and it's just good for all of us to know the numbers of what we have right now in our district. Those are obviously in the minutes, but so everybody is aware, our current total enrollment in the district is 4,742 students. So it's not just a few, it's a lot. We also reviewed our RFP schedule. I know a lot of the times when we come to these meetings, it seems like there's always an RFP to review, et cetera, and it seems to be kind of on a rolling basis, and we really wanted to try and standardize that so that everything was starting and ending at the same time. So you'll see in the minutes we have a schedule there where these professional services RFPs are now going to be on a consistent schedule so that we can it's just easier to monitor and manage that process. We did discuss the Mount Olive High School parking revenue. I know it was brought up that, let's discuss why we're still paying parking, things like that. So what we did is reviewed the practice of senior students paying for parking, and what we're going to do is start to brainstorm what are the options for that moving forward. So the plan is for the Finance Operations Committee to bring some of those options to the board in the coming weeks. We also went over approving longevity for both the secretarial staff and the non-unit clerical staff. We discussed the facilities rental. We're actually adding for the district, when you rent the facilities here, we'll be adding a site manager. It's just really important to have that person who is able to, obviously be the point of contact for these. So you'll see that if you are renting any facilities here in Mount Olive, you will see that we have added a site manager to oversee that. We went over our legal fees for scrap metal investigation, our 23-24 food service accounts receivable, the Brightly software, Sodexo June settlement, and our school bus purchases. That is Cliff Notes. You can do any one of those items. Would you like me to?
Do you have any questions from the board for our finance operations?
Yes, please. I wasn't able to make the last meeting due to work schedule. I like to go because I like to hear what's happening, and I like to ask questions and give my input. I know we hired our Director of Buildings and Grounds on July 22nd. Can you tell me when he started?
He started this past week, Tuesday.
Last week?
Yes.
Okay. During that time, we hired Mr. Meso as interim consultant for us to do that. How long do you think we'll be keeping him on so that Mr. Mateo gets up to, because no sense to spend extra money?
We were discussing at finance about those options and the type of overlay for the two of them to have.
Okay, I just wanted to keep an eye on it because I don't think we need two people doing the same job, but we certainly want to get Mr. Mateo up to speed on what's happening in the district. So, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question. 2.06, for the fencing around the Geodome, was there any specific reason why it was not bought? It was approved since February?
There were a couple of reasons why. There were questions that perhaps it was too expensive and the committee wanted to further look into it. It was the quote was about $17,000, and there were concerns because we were going to be purchasing from a co-op. Sometimes when you purchase from a co-op, things could be a little bit more expensive. So the committee at that time wanted us to look at other options and get additional quotes. So, and because we were in the middle of budget season during that time, it fell off the director's radar. So we, Mr. DiMatteo has solicited another vendor and going to revisit that.
And how many quotes did we receive for those? Only one quote for that fencing, or we have at least
One quote was submitted last year because it was a co-op. It's not, you can get multiple quotes, it's not required from a purchasing standpoint, but again, there was concern that perhaps it was a little bit too expensive, so we held off on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? No? Okay. Seeing none, we will move to Policy and Governance Committee report. Ms. Melendez.
Yes. The Policy Committee, we met on Wednesday, September 4th. Dr. Banya reviewed the regulations updates, which included revised regulations for Regulation 5330.04, which administering the opioid antidote, Regulation 2431.2, medical examination prior to participations on a school-sponsored interscholastic and intramural team or squad. Newly created regulations are Regulation 7420.2 for chemical hygiene, Regulation 6115.01 Federal Awards Funds Internal Controls Allowability of Costs, and Regulation 4200 for job descriptions. Policy revisions were also reviewed, which included P1400s for job descriptions, P2110 mission statement, P5130 withdrawal from school, P5550 disaffected pupils student, and P5560 disrupted pupils student. And with that, all policy, all regulations are finally all revised and up to date and current. And thank you so much, Dr. Banja. It was a very, very big burden, but you got it done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments or questions from the board with regards to the policies and regulations that have been fully updated? Dr. Banja, did you want to speak just a little bit to the reasons why it's so important for us to go through all of these policies and update not just our policies, but then the regulations that go along with it? They're the backbone of really our district.
As we talked about in the last meeting, the policies and regulations are critical for running of any school district, right? It really determines what we are allowed and permitted to do and not to do according to the state. And the policies really structures those statutes clear, and the regulations abides us as a district as to how we're going to interpret that policy. So by having all the policies and regulations up to date, it allows us to ensure our practices are up to the standards set by the state, and also not only that, it's for the community to understand what are the expectations of how our school district is going to be run. So both sides.
I want to say thank you, Dr. Banja, who spent half our summer reading through all of our regulations and our policies, some that were not touched or looked at since 1998, I think. And Mrs. Melendez, I know this is right up your alley, and you truly actually enjoy chairing that committee, so thank you. Not over, but so being with that, no questions, we will move on. Board, subcommittee, and parent-teacher association liaison reports. Do we have anyone that would like to come to the mic for our board subcommittee or parent-teacher liaison reports? No, we haven't had any meetings yet. Does anybody from the board have any reports? No? Mr. Stansberry, do you know when we'll have our favorite student liaisons?
Ready to go at the second week of every month.
Okay. Yeah, usually one. Okay, so the next meeting, hopefully we'll have our new student liaisons. All right, being we have none, I don't have anything for president report. We will move to public comments on action items. Sorry, I need new glasses. Members of the community may comment on any action item prior to board discussion. Action items only. Please see your name and address for the record. All comments must be respectfully presented. Abusive or obscene comments will not be tolerated. And this is only on action items listed. And we do have some notes up at the podium to remind you to lean into your microphone when speaking. Speak as loudly and clearly. And I'll repeat the question for the audience as best as I can. We'll avoid jargon, and we will do our best to keep the noise level down. This room does echo, and we do have the air on. So anyone, the mic is open for action items for the public.
Martin Wells Muller, 25 Woodcrest Avenue, Bud Lake, New Jersey. Sorry for being late. I was at Chatham soccer games. Varsity team lost, freshman team won, and JV lost. But we gave a good all out there, so the boys are on the way back now. My questions are as follows. It was mentioned during the financial report about a scrap metal investigation tonight. All right. With that scrap metal, was there any conclusive evidence of which employees were stealing the scrap metal?
We cannot comment on legal.
I understand the report that was mentioned tonight, will that be made available to the public?
We can't comment on legal or personnel matters.
I understand, but it was mentioned during meeting, so I just like to find out if that can be made public.
Mr. Rosmiller, I would suggest that you send an email because this is a comment section and I think we need to start refraining from the back and forth jargon. So if you could just state your questions for the public and then send them in an email, we can answer you at that time.
Okay, so my question will be, for the record, has any employees been disciplined for stealing scrap metal for the district and taking away from the benefit of our students? Number two, I'm also very extremely happy about all the policies and all the things you guys have been updating. 2 years ago, we had other board members here, they weren't addressing any of the policies. And I'm very proud of what Mount has done over the past 2 years, how many policies have been updated, and they even read the new ones that are being put in place. So you guys should be very proud of that. And then in the past, it was requested by someone else in the community about having a full audit done on finance. Going to the finance committee to do RFPs. Are we ever going to have an opportunity to get a full audit on the school district outside the regular general auditing program? I think Karen mentioned that a few years ago, and she never got an answer for that, and I think that's something that will benefit the township. And that's about all I have with the agenda items. But like I said, I am happy about what has happened with the policies, and that compliments everyone who's put the time and effort into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to comment on action items and action items only? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the approval of monthly expenditures and reports. Items 6.1 through 6.7. And who else? Mr. Strelacci, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, sure. I'd like to move the expenditures and reports 6.1, 6.7.
Second.
Do you have any questions or comments from the board? I just have one comment on the bills list. Ms. Schoening wants to make sure that there are hotel bills listed for Ms. Jones for the workshop. Before we vote, I want to make sure is that for any board members or are those for employees? I just want to abstain from basically anything that would pertain to either of us.
They include board members and district employees that are attending.
Okay, so maybe for Mr. Gepper, best practice would be for any of us to abstain from any item that we would be benefiting from in terms of the workshop.
Yes, each board member should abstain from the particular item that relates to themselves. And you could just reflect that in the minutes.
Okay, thank you. With that, anyone else have any questions? So can we just put a note that board members abstain from voting on their own workshop item?
Yes, I'll be sure to do that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Did we have a second?
Yes.
We had a second? All right, Ms. Jones, I'll take a roll call then, sorry.
Mr. Strelacci?
Where the name Jody Bosch appears, I abstain. Everything else, yes, please.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes, except anything related to Jen Aquino on the bills list, I abstain to that.
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes, except anything that says Lisa Fenton on the bills list.
Mrs. Figuera?
Yes, with the exception of anything pertaining to Beth Figuera.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Abstain on any items listing Lauren Fitzgerald, yes on everything else.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes, except for anything that state Luisa Melendez.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes, except for anything that states Jeannie O'Neill.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes, everything except anything that states Mark Orzillo.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes to everything except for anything related to Narcisse in the workshop. And just for clarification, there's a school board workshop that we all attend in October, and that's what those bill items are related to, just for public knowledge. All right, we will move on to personnel action items, and that is for Mrs. Aquino.
Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, I'd like to make a motion to approve action items 7.1 through 7.30.
Second.
Do you have any questions or comments from the board related to personnel action items?
I'd like to make a comment and say congratulations to Betty Forward on her retirement.
I'm going to have to say, Mrs. Ford, I'm very, very sad to see her go. For those that don't know, I've known her very, very long time, and she's a wonderful school nurse. So congratulations on retirement. Anyone else?
I have a comment, yeah. 7.30, the attachment that is there below to 7.29.
Yes, I did notice that.
Okay, just that correction.
Just double check, I'm just looking at that, sorry. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Ms. Melendez was just saying that one of the attachments belongs to another line item. I don't know if the public can see all the attachments. Okay. Anyone else? Being none, we'll take a roll call, please.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes.
Mrs. Figuera?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendez?
Abstaining 7.9, and yes to everything else.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Abstain to anything with Christian or Patrick Humphrey, yes to everything else.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes.
Mr. Strelacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes. And we will move on to curriculum and technology action items. Mrs. Fenton.
Thank you. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, I would like to approve curriculum and technology action items 8.1 to 8.9.
Second.
Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a roll call. Ms. Jones?
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes.
Mrs. Figuera?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes.
Mr. Strelacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes. And we will move on to finance and operations action items. And Ms. Fitzgerald.
On the recommendation of the superintendent, I'd like to make a motion to approve action items 9.1 through 9.7.
Second.
Do we have any questions or comments from the board related to finance? No? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Jones will take a roll call.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes.
Mr. Strelacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Figuera?
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes. Administrative action items. Mrs. Melendez.
I would like to present a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent for section 10 administrative actions items 10.1 to 10.31. However, I would like to make a comment in 10.3, pointed out to all the parents of the high school that this section is approved an amendment to the 2024-2025 school district calendar to change October 17, 2024 to a shortened day for high school students only.
And can we maybe explain, Dr. Banda, what October 17th what will be going on as to why we're doing a shortened day that day?
Certainly, if you recall, last spring, we joined with the Roxbury School District to host reunification. So we brought some of our high school students to their high school back in the spring, which required them to do a half day. So we're being reciprocal, in which now they're going to be bringing some of their students to our high school for their reunification, which will require us to have a half day in turn.
Thank you.
And Mr. Stansford will be sending out communication about that after tonight's board meeting.
Hit send.
And again, to reiterate, it is only for the high school. I just
Yes.
cannot stress this enough.
Only for the high school, students, yes, just to allow us to clear the parking lot. So when the Roxbury parents come, they're able to have access to the building in a timely manner to retrieve their children.
So again, presenting upon the recommendation of the superintendent, sections 10.1 to 10.31.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the board other than what we just explained? No? Seeing none, we will take a roll call, please, Ms. Jones.
Mrs. Melendez?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mr. Orzillo?
Yes.
Mr. Strelacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Aquino?
Yes.
Mrs. Fenton?
Yes.
Mrs. Figueroa?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Narcisse?
Yes. Oh, we're all the way down to old business. Do we
Yes,
have
please.
any? Oh, did I miss anything?
Yes, please. Just out of curiosity, I know we hired a lot of new teachers. Is that because we're replacing teachers or because we're offering new courses?
It's mostly a combination, so we certainly have had some individuals who have resigned or retired over the past year, as well as there was a creation of a number of different positions. One of the most hires we have is also we created a CS team exclusively for preschool students that allows us to not require our CST teams from other elementaries to have to go to Mountain View. So it's really about ensuring that we have that continuity, so that added a handful of positions. So it's a combination of replacement and addition.
For the teachers that are not replacing someone, do we have classrooms for them?
Yes, and we are now up against the wall as far as space-wise. And certainly I know you had asked a question about enrollment at a previous board meeting, and I know finance did discuss that. And you know, when we look at our enrollments, why they have been somewhat, I want to say, holding steady for a couple of years. You know, in conversations with my entire admin team, what's really taking up a lot of spaces. We're really fortunate to have a lot of differentiated programming in this district, whether it be special ed related or small group classroom instruction that requires some square footage. And because of those more programs that we have on the books compared to, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, it's requiring us to add more space to our buildings, which at this point we really truly do not have, especially at the middle school in particular. We literally do not have any class period available for space in most of any of our periods.
Thank you.
Anyone else for old business? Okay, seeing none. Any new business? Members of the board, any new business? No? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to public comments. Students, parents, employees, and community members may comment on any item of interest pertaining to the Mount Olive School District. Please state your name and address for the record. All comments must be respectfully presented. Abusive or obscene comments will not be tolerated, and the floor is open. Anyone from the public? Really? Can I close it out quickly? All right, we will then move on to board comment. Members of the board may comment on any item of interest, and I'm just going to start over at the end. Mr. Orzillo.
I'd just like to welcome all of our new staff members and say welcome aboard. That's it.
And Mrs. Fitzgerald.
Yeah, so just one comment. I know it's fall and it's our first full week of all, 5 days of school. I know a lot of us have been in a lot of activities on the weekends. It's a lot of sports. It's a lot of different things going on in the district. This weekend, I saw a lot of you at different fields and different facilities. But what I was really struck by is how many of our Mount Olive staff who were not involved in said activities were there. And it really is something special to see how many teachers, how many of our vice principals and principals take time out of their busy schedules to show up to these concerts and these fields and these seemingly obscure events. I am so proud of our staff, and it's just such a neat thing for me to see, and I know the children love it. So just kudos to our incredible staff for taking that time. It is really impressive, the dedication to the profession. So thank you for that.
You have something?
Mrs. Melendez.
Yes. So welcome to the new staff and welcome to our district.
Same thing, welcome to your staff of Nando County.
Ditto.
Mrs. Fenton, we're just going to go down the line.
Okay. Welcome to new staff members, and yes, I think we're on a good roll as far as all our activities. I am looking for an email by an Ann, and it's really nice to see that we are hosting some home games for gymnastics, and I hope that the board could come out and see them, as they are sure looking really good this year.
This weekend is the first one, right?
Is it this weekend?
It is
Saturday.
this weekend, Saturday. so-
Saturday.
Yep.
At
4:30.
What,
CS. CS
CS
Gymnastics.
Gymnastics.
CS Gymnastics, so please come out and support our gymnasts. I have a feeling they're gonna go really great places this year.
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, I'll just go and then we'll keep going. Welcome new staff. I don't get slept. I've been on how many fields? CS Gymnastics 4:30 Saturday. We also have our boys soccer team will be playing at Red Bull Stadium Thursday. Is it the 12th? And 7 o'clock. I might have the time wrong. I'm sure Mr. Wellsmueller will tell me if I'm wrong or right. There is a lot going on, and we have our first kickoff football game home against Randolph on Friday. I don't know what the Marauder Mob has named what our crowd should be wearing. Somebody send it to me. And also, this week we have back to school night. Please pay attention to your emails. Those are coming through. And I believe tomorrow night kicks it off here at the middle school for middle school back to school night. So please pay attention to all of your emails coming through. I can't keep up. There's a lot going on in district. These kids are really rocking and rolling, and our staff is very busy. And we'll just keep going to Mrs. Figueroa.
Ditto to all of that. Hope it's a great year for everybody. Welcome back.
And welcome to the new staff. Congratulations to the boys football team for their 48-0 win. And back to school night, CPEG will be setting up a table at back to school night at each one of the schools, I think. Amy couldn't come tonight, but she did say they're going to try to have a table at every back to school night. And if not, information to hand out to the child study teams or to vice principals. I wish Miss Willoughby's well, and I'm praying for her. And that's it. That's all I have.
Dr. Banjo, wrap it up. Anything?
Just a reminder that tomorrow, back to school night at the middle school starts at 6 p.m. 6 p.m.
May I add one more thing?
Is that it?
Oh, may I add one thing? On October 12th, Mountain View is having their turkey tray. That's October 12th.
October 12th.
So come on out if you
Beth
can.
Ann, am I a caller?
Yes, you are.
All right. Be hearing my voice.
I think middle school has theirs in March.
It's the spring, yeah, March.
Can we just also say happy birthday to Mrs. Jones?
Miss
Can we sing?
Jones, happy birthday. We don't want to sing.
Happy birthday, Mrs. Jones.
We're not gonna sing. We have dessert over there.
Miss
Miss
Fitzgerald,
Jones.
did you bake again?
I did.
Oh.
It's over there.
All right. Anyone else? With that, I will take a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
I just have to read, resolved that the board meet in confidential session for the purpose of discussing personnel, matters of attorney-client privilege, any litigation. Be it further resolved that matters discussed in confidential session be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality no longer exists. Action may be taken. We are now in closed session, and hopefully it won't be long. All right, we are back. All right, we will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And we are done for tonight. Everybody have a great week.